What's going on, boys and girls? My name is Michael SK and welcome back to the Labyrinth of Grisaia. So in the last episode, Yuuji moved in with Asako. Things aren't going that great. That's pretty much where we're at. Basically, they're trying to get him to eat, but he's not eating, that sort of deal, because he is a complete mess. So we'll jump into that, but I'd like to clarify something. Someone left a comment on the on one of my last videos talking about the percentage that is shown in the corner. Now, right here is what he was talking about in the top right. That's the total percentage of how much that I've gotten through with this entire game, which means all the routes. And this percentage here is Yuuji's past. And that percentage pops up in the top right when we're actually in that route. So, there was just a little bit of a misidentification or something like that. So, like, you'll see in the top right here that that's how much that we've completed so far in this entire game. But once we get in here, and I'll even show this to you guys, and once we actually jump right back in, and we listen to what she has to say. Alright, so now if you look in the top right, you can see that that's the percentage of the route so far, which you can see from here. It's exactly the same. So just wanted to clarify that, make sure there's like no mix-ups or anything. But I also found out something new. I didn't know this before. I actually went through that just to look at it and see how that was set up. So now I know. Now we all know, maybe. I don't know. But let's jump back into this, guys. Whenever Asako expressed any concern, Kazami Yuuji would always respond in the same way. I guess we're still speaking on behalf of JB. Don't pay so much attention to me. Women who get close to me always end up dead. Of course, this was sheer nonsense, but the boy sounded quite sure of himself. That only irritated Asako, who'd usually reply with an exasperated, "Don't be such a goddamn baby." I don't understand, Asako. Yuuji was talking a good deal more now, but he remained fundamentally indifferent to everything, never showing any real interest in the world around him. He wasn't impressed by anything you gave him. Even slugging him wouldn't get you a reaction. Well then, what would inspire interest from a boy of his age? A woman's body, perhaps? By some unfathomable feat of mental gymnastics, Asako eventually reached this very conclusion. Great, and revealed herself to Kazami Yuuji completely in the nude, only to be met with his usual blank expression. Saw that coming. Ah, shit. You'll catch a cold. Alright. Asako was quite proud of her voluptuous? Yeah, sure, body's sex appeal, so she apparently found this particular setback a rather frustrating one. In any case, where do we go from here? After thinking it over for a while, Asako decided to consider alternative approaches. Kazami Yuuji had exhibited an extreme response to the death of a living thing. In that case, maybe having him deliberately kill something would work as a kind of shock therapy. But then again, an approach like that might end up exasperating the boy's trauma just as he was finally starting to recover. Hey man, no need to call her out. Ah shit, my bad. Wow, JB's a bitch. Again, I'm sorry if I accidentally, like, skip prematurely. It seems to be a little bit more of a setback in this game compared to the Fruit of Grisaia because the audio will trail on a little bit. It just won't cut it, which is kind of annoying in a way. But I guess sometimes people just talk too slow, and I just want to get to the next line of text, man. Kazami Yuuji was frightened by living things. Was he afraid of life himself? God damn it. Was he afraid of life itself? What does it really mean to be alive anyway? What is it that drives us to go on living? What's the purpose of our lives? Having boastfully declared herself the boy's god, promising to decide his reason for existing, Asako couldn't exactly shrug her shoulders and say, sorry, I don't know. But however she agonized over these questions, no answers were emerging. Before long, she was scratching irritably at her head, letting out odd little moans of frustration. Ugh, God damn it, frustration. Hell yeah, boy. I actually haven't gone to the zoo since I was much younger than Yuuji is right now. The zoo's great from what I remember. Huh? Wow, they actually went to the zoo. I thought it was just going to be like a joke. Alright. Had she overloaded her mind thinking about living things until the idea somehow popped out? It had certainly come out of nowhere. When sitting in a chair and thinking doesn't get you anywhere, you might as well try getting up and actually doing something. That's pretty smart. It was a simplistic, careless line of thought, but that was par for the course where Kusakabe Asako was concerned. The next Wednesday, after practically forcing me into giving her a day off work, she headed to the East Beach Animal Park with Kazami Yuuji in tow. The boy hated crowds and confined spaces like trains, so the two of them drove over in a convertible four-wheel drive, bringing the boxed lunches I'd made for the occasion. Of course, this was the first time Asako had ever taken a child to the zoo. She didn't exactly know how to proceed once they arrived. For starters, they wandered over to the elephants, and then to the giraffes, and then to the zebras, and then to the koala bears. Their haphazard tour had taken them past quite a variety of animals by this point, but Kazami Yuuji looked as drowsy and disinterested as ever. He'd hardly reacted to anything. Trying to find something more impressive, Asako brought him over to the cages where they kept the big carnivores, but even then the boy only offered a few bland comments about the lines of, "That's a lion, huh? It's pretty yellow." It seemed like he was making an effort to express his honest thoughts, knowing that Asako had gone out of her way to bring him over here. But compared to realizing that a kid was trying not to hurt your feelings, it probably would have been less frustrating if he just stayed totally quiet. You call this the king of beasts? Useless piece of crap. Clutching at the bars of the cage, Asako silently glared daggers at the perfectly innocent animals within. Perhaps detecting a certain whiff of bloodlust in the air, one of the male lions turned in our direction and let out an intimidating roar. Naturally, this only got Asako's dander up. What's with the attitude, you worthless little shit? Why does this all sound familiar? From the lion's perspective, it might well have been a stage roar intended to provide his paying audience with a nice little thrill. When this was answered by a furious threat of his life, the poor thing didn't have much of a choice but to slink off in defeat. Some customers just love to make your life difficult. Kazami Yuuji had watched all this in a state of wide-eyed astonishment, and for one brief moment he apparently cracked a smile. They'd come all the way out to the zoo, but in the end, Kusakabe Asako had proven the most bizarre beast of all. With that tidy conclusion to the outing, the two of them returned home. I thought they took a picture together. Now, the reason why I said that all sounded familiar is because I believe Yuuji told that story, that same exact story in detail, to Makina in that route in the Fruit of Grisaia, when he took her up to the into this lodge here to pay respects, clean up the place, all that great shit. It was some nice stuff. I feel like Makina's story was just a really great way to just get like a little taste of what Yuuji's story really is here. And here we are, we're experiencing it, right in the same location. I mean, you can if you want, it just probably won't be recommended.
生き物との触れ合い作戦も微妙に効果が薄かったみたいね。
あ、なんだその脱線作戦名。ありえねえだろ。
あなたにだけは言われたくないわよ。
それにまだ作戦は終わっちゃいねえ。本番はこれ。
本番って何をする気なのよ。
I knew that I was clicking a little too early, and I just kept my finger on that mouse button for like a solid second, thinking, "Fuck." I hate skipping, man. It makes me look like an idiot, an impatient idiot.
あいつ自身の手で生き物を育てさせてみるってのはどうだ？
育てさせるって何を？
犬。
犬？
実はもう K9 の連中から子犬をもらう約束をしてやる。今日後でもらいに行ってくる。
Now this sounds familiar because I don't think it was brought up in the Fruit of Grisaia, but I think it was brought up in the anime. This anime, the Labyrinth of Grisaia, it was brought up. So, I don't know. That same evening, Asako returned to her cabin with a single young border collie in her arms. Oh my god! Oh my god!
もらってくるって言うから、ジャーマンシェパードの子犬だと思ったのに。
That thing's adorable. Oh my god, guys, my inner soft side's coming out. Guys, I love animals. I love doggos. I love cats. Oh my god, this thing is adorable. Oh my god. It's so cute. Look at its paw there at the bottom. It's so nice.
野戦用に試験導入されたボーダーコリー部隊の新生児だ。たくさん生まれて手に負えないって言うから一匹タダでもらってきた。ほらユージ、かわいいだろう。
A dog?
今日からこいつはお前の犬だ。相棒、ペア、バディ、好きに呼べ。お前が2年兵ならこいつは初年兵。つまりは戦友だ。しっかりと面倒を見ろよ。そう露骨に面倒そうな顔をするなよ。こいつはまだ子犬だ。お前が面倒を見なきゃ簡単に死ぬ。大切に育てると約束してもらってきた犬だ。死なすなよ。
When you put it that way, Kazami Yuuji didn't have much choice but to agree, however reluctantly. Asako promptly pushed the puppy to his chest, holding it carefully in one arm. He reached up to scratch it on the head. What's its name?
なんだったかな。全部の子犬に名前がついてたような気もするが。犬舎の隅っこでガタガタ震えてる一番弱っちいのを掴んでもらってきたってこと以外はよく覚えてない。
アバウトだな。
まあいいじゃねえか。もうお前の犬だ。名前はお前がつけろ。
Alright then. John. Yes. John the pupper.
また適当な。ジョン・ルーは身元不明の死体につける名前よ。
そいつはメスだぞ。女の死体ならジェーンだろう。
Oh, it's a girl dog. I mean, either way, it looks like a fantastic pupper.
そういう問題じゃないでしょ。
Surprisingly, Asako's spur-of-the-moment attempt at animal therapy actually proved quite effective. The presence of a pet that was absolutely dependent on him for survival spurred Kazami Yuuji into developing a certain sense of responsibility. The change was gradual, but we began to observe signs of general improvement. One day I noticed the boy smiling as he tossed a ball around the cabin for the dog to fetch. It was a genuinely startling sight.
この子が笑ってるところ、初めて見たわ。
It was a distinctly awkward, stiff expression, but when I saw it, I couldn't keep myself from smiling as well. On a not unrelated note, by this point, I was also beginning to observe remarkable changes in Kusakabe Asako's behavior. I feel like I'm saying her name, like her first, oh wait, no, that's her last name. Shit, I get them mixed up. I'm always saying Kusakabe wrong in some sort of way. Asako had always been known for her daredevil attitude. She was selfish, arrogant, and utterly fearless. Sometimes she could be so reckless that it seemed as if she actually wanted to die on the job. But lately, her methods had become increasingly careful and prudent, a change that was the subject of much discussion. It's probably safe to say that this has a lot to do with her new role as a guardian. Just as John was contributing to Kazami Yuuji's psychological healing process, Kazami Yuuji himself appeared to be having a similar effect on Asako. Knowing that the boy was reliant on her protection, Death was evidently losing whatever appeal it had once held for her. The childish pride she'd found in behaving recklessly seemed to be fading.
子供ってのは面白いな。教えれば何でも覚える。教えた先を自分で考えて予測もする。まだ教えてないこともいつの間にか自分で覚えていたりする。育つってすげえな。
Well, I'll never know. I hate kids, so I guess this is as far as I'll ever get to seeing how a kid really is.
まあ、ユージは特に頭がいいっていうか、変にずる賢いところもあるしね。
私はいい意味で、あいつのそういうところも気に入っている。
Kazami Yuuji had recovered significantly in his time with Asako, to be sure, but the darkness in his heart hadn't faded completely. He found it impossible to trust anyone other than Asako and me, and couldn't stand to go anywhere even slightly crowded with people. Fearing the gaze of strangers, he wasn't even capable of walking his dog through the streets of the nearest town. We'd been planning to let him heal slowly in the peaceful quiet of the forest, but it was becoming increasingly obvious that walking around a deserted mountain wasn't going to help him rejoin society. It was around this point that Asako abruptly submitted a letter of resignation to the organization known as Ichigaya. So are they working with Ichigaya? I asked this last time, but that video isn't up yet, so I actually do not know where they work right now, so oh well. As her case officer, I was able to stop the letter at my desk before word reached the upper ranks. With that done, I immediately rushed over to Asako's cabin to confront her.
ちょっと朝子、会社に辞表を出すなんてどういうつもり？
ああ、疲れた。いい加減しんどい。
会社を辞めるってどういうことか分かって言ってるの？ファミレスの学生アルバイトじゃあるまいし、だるいから辞めますじゃ通用しないのよ。
分かってるよ。
分かってないわよ。
shit! God fucking damn it!
曲がりなりにもSARS の根幹をなす工作員なのよ。
I think I skipped something here. Hold on. How do I? Okay. Oh wait, no, I didn't. I did not skip anything. Wow, I accidentally clicked a little too fast there, but nope. I didn't skip anything. That's fantastic.
はい、そうですかって辞めさせてもらえるわけないじゃない。よくて終身刑。悪ければ殺されるわよ。
This place fucking sucks.
両方とも嫌だな。なんとかしてくれ JB。
無茶を言わないでよ。
無茶を言っているのは分かっている。分かってはいるが、そこをなんとかというやつだ。なんとかならんか。
ユージの影響かしらね。最近のあなた、少し落ち着いてきたように見えるし、これからっていうタイミングでどうして辞職なのよ。死ぬのが怖くなったの？
まあ、ユージの存在が私に影響してるのは認めるよ。死ぬのが怖くなったというのも間違いじゃない。だが、それだけが理由じゃない。年のせいかな。右目の視力がどんどん悪くなっているんだ。正直言って超長距離精密射撃はもう無理だろうな。
視力か。
In truth, Asako's age likely had nothing to do with the matter at hand. In the course of an operation some years previously, she'd been struck in the right shoulder by a large caliber bullet. The injury itself was barely a scratch, but the shock of the impact had ruptured a number of capillaries, I fucked that up, forcing a large amount of blood to surge backward. It had placed immense pressure on the optic nerve of her right eye. After 4 operations, the doctors had managed to restore her vision, but the overall impact on her body remained unclear. They hadn't ruled out the possibility she'd die in a sudden death from circulatory failure. Asako's condition hadn't deteriorated in any detectable way over the last few years, but the lingering effects of that incident were clearly beginning to reassert themselves.
会社を辞めてどうするの？
おとなしく隠居ってのも柄じゃないしな。非常勤で後進育成の仕事でもするか。アメリカに戻ってハンティングスクールのインストラクターでもやるかな。
風見雄二はどうするの？
Yeah, that's actually a good question.
連れて行くさ。どこへでも。あいつはもう私の子供も同然だ。これからはあいつのための時間を少しでも増やしてやりたいと。そう。
Ah, fuck. God damn it. After this conversation, I proceeded to submit Asako's letter of resignation, or a heavily edited version thereof, to both Ichigaya and Akasaka. In the end, she was permitted to retire from active duty, but not from her post. Kusakabe Asako would remain on Ichigaya's roster, if only as a part of the permanent reserve. I remember this part pretty well myself. Man, we're back in the present. It's been a while. At the time, I didn't even know what Asako did for a living, and to be honest, I was too caught up with my own problems to spare too much thought for anybody else.
当時のあなたはまだ子供だったのだから、それでいいのよ。
You know, I thought I got past being a child a long time ago, but even now, I can't say I really feel like an adult either.
実際にあの当時、あなたは何を考えていたの？
I feel like I was worrying about all sorts of things, but at the same time, I think I spent most of my energy just trying to process the situation I'd found myself in.
子供が経験するにはいろいろとありすぎたものね。
Yeah, can't argue with you there. Asako had taken me in. I was now living quietly in an isolated mountain hut, surrounded by nature. But for some time, I didn't really understand the ways in which my life had changed. I guess we're back over to Yuuji here. My hospital room and its depressing odors had been replaced with a small cabin enveloped by the stink of ripe grass. The doctor who wore gold-rimmed glasses and smelled of cigarettes was gone, as was the nurse with the fake smile. They had been replaced by a pushy, crude lady and a nagging blonde. That was about it, from my perspective. Day in and day out, the only thing I thought about was escape. I had to get out of this place. I didn't even know what I needed to get away from, or where I'd run to. But that didn't change a thing. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't stay anywhere for too long. If I did, something was going to track me down and kill everyone around me. I didn't have the first idea what that something was. But if it caught up to me, it was going to use my right hand to kill people. The words of Li Lisheng, Hithoslo, Kirihara Rei, the aliases, they're finally coming back to me, still ring in my ears.
君は誰に会ってもいけない。会えばその人はきっと君を傷つける。役立たずの君を、邪魔者の君を殺そうとする。何を話しかけられても返事をしてはいけない。君の家族を殺したのもその悪いやつだ。君を傷つけ苦しめるために君の周りの人間を殺してしまうとても悪いやつだ。
Well, I guess Asako and JB were right. Like, he really embedded this shit into his mind, and that's now what he thinks.
やつは君が大切なものを手に入れるたびにそれを壊しにやってくる。君がそばにいるだけで君の周りはどんどん壊されていく。君は何も悪いことをしていないというのにだ。君がいるだけで周りの人間皆が迷惑する。誰も君なんか必要としていない。君に逃げ場でも安心してほしい。私だけは君の味方だ。この世でたった一人の君の理解者だ。
That's all bullshit.
辛いね。苦しいね。もちろん私は全部わかっているさ。 君は人生という木から落ちたまだ青すぎる果実だ。誰も君に見向きもしない。それどころか腐っていく君を見て眉を寄せるだけだ。そう、君は嫌われているんだ。だけど何も悲しむことはない。この私が君を拾おう。私が君を拾って種を取り出し、新たな大地に植えて育ててあげよう。やがて立派に成長した君は私のためにその枝にたくさんの果実をつけるだろう。それが私への恩返しだ。わかるね。けど今はまだ君を植えてあげる新たな大地が見つからない。悪いやつが邪魔をしているんだ。だからまずはその悪いやつを退治するところから始めなければいけない。そしてそれは君自身が自分の手で成し遂げなければならない仕事だ。さあユージ、立ち上がるんだ。その体が腐ってしまう前に。手を出してごらん。この薬が君の体が腐るのを止める薬だ。
Medicine, he says.
やれるね。やがて手に入れる約束の大地のために。
No.
君に選択肢はないんだよ、ユージ。
No. No. The promised land is your only possible destination. No! I've heard that dreams are the brain's way of processing your memories. I suppose that would explain why my nightmares were always so terrible. My brain didn't exactly have anything pleasant to work with. Awakening in the dark, I looked around the cabin, faintly illuminated by the starlight filtering in through the window. My pupils had probably dilated again. When I lifted my sweaty upper body from the bed, the entire cabin seemed to tilt underneath me. For a moment, it felt as if I might just slide down the floor and fall off into nothingness. I was exhausted, physically and mentally, but it didn't feel like I could possibly fall back asleep. From beyond the curtain that separated our beds, I could hear Asako snoring softly, almost like a child. I lowered my feet to the floor and stood up, then looked in on Asako. Finding her curled up like a cat in her bed, I proceeded to quietly make my way out of the cabin. What on earth was I doing here? It was long past time to make a break for it, but where was I going to go after leaving this place? Nothing really came to mind. Maybe I'd just die by the side of the road somewhere. The idea didn't really bother me, to be honest. It wasn't as if I deserved anything better. My life didn't have any real purpose. I was just a small animal like any other, running around frantically because it didn't want to die. As I stepped outside the cabin, I glanced up and found the sky absolutely full of stars. And so beautiful. The mountain air was clear, and we were a long way from the glaring lights of the city, so the night sky was breathtakingly brilliant. I'd forgotten just how many stars were up there. As I stared at the twinkling panorama, above, feeling as if it might swallow me whole, I felt something brush against me. When I looked down, I found the puppy Asako had given me rubbing against my leg. Oh, right. I almost forgot about you. Even if I were to flee, I couldn't just leave the dog behind. Back when Mom ran away from my father, I was probably a lot like this puppy in her eyes. Not that I had any way to know for sure, now that she was gone. In any case, there was nowhere for me to run. There was no one left out there who'd protect me. Even the man who'd promised to keep me safe had disappeared. All I had left in the world was this puppy. Nothing else. But even so, this woman named Kusakabe Asako just might be able to help me. Even if the devil caught up to me, and my right hand tried to kill someone again, she might be able to stop me. Even if my hand tried to kill her, she might be able to survive. She didn't seem like the type to die easily. Maybe she'd even be kind enough to kill me instead. There aren't any saints out there. No one's really on your side. I knew all that by now, but Maybe I could try trusting that woman anyway. Couldn't hurt to give it one last shot, right? Let's go back in. Deciding to head back into the cabin, I tried my best to fall asleep. I bent down and picked up the dog at my feet. When I turned around, I found myself face to face with Asako. She was leaning against the doorway, arms folded, with a wry smile on her face.
どうした？眠れないのならベッドで絵本を読んでやろうか。
Oh, please. I answered this somewhat sardonic offer with a deeply sarcastic smile. Alright then. Snow White sounds good.
言うじゃねえか。
From that point on, I found myself willing to trust this Kusakabe Asako woman, at least on a superficial level. This marked the beginning of my rehabilitation period. Little by little, I began to adjust to living with Asako, god damn it, and my dog in that isolated cabin. But one day, completely out of nowhere, Asako walked over to me and issued the following proclamation. That's where we're going to stop. I don't want to know what it is. Alright, so the Kakuna Caprice 6, 32% done. So thank you very much for watching, boys and girls. Hopefully you enjoyed the session. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, all that fantastic shit. And I'll see you next time here with the Labyrinth of Grisaia. Take it easy, guys.